Welcome to another Northern Monkeys battle report. This time the Orcs and the Black Templars are squaring off in a really fun and aggressive melee matchup. So this is my Orc list. It's Warhorde. It's the kind of the standard Goths index detachment. I played with a couple of the other ones, and this one I just really like it. I just think it's cool and fun, and Orcs feel like Orcs. And I feel like those sustained hits are something you really need to sort of punch through, unless you have the like ultra specialised units like 30 knobs and some beast snagger boys and the beast bosses and the tank busters, which are the new hotness in Orcs. So yeah, I really like Warhorde. It's got some great strats and some great synergies. So this is my list. Got the war boss leading 5 knobs. He's deployed in the truck closest to us there. There's 40 boys, which are spread out, some on the home objective, some on foot, all in squads of 10 with claws on the knobs. And there's one of those squads is in a truck as well. There's 10 commandos who were deployed in the midboard, just sort of a little, but they were deployed originally behind that line of sight blocking terrain. The great unit commandos, I really like all their abilities and their war gear and stuff. I think even though they're expensive, they're one of my favourite Orc units. Got 10 Storm Boys, 2 units of 5, 1 in reserve, 1 on the board. I really like that because you've obviously got 1 unit to go and do actions in the mid-board early, and then another unit to come in and do actions later, and also threaten enemy objectives with Deep Strike. So really good. The 2 trucks that I've got, I love these units. They're nice and cheap, and surprisingly they're not durable, but they'll keep you guys safe for a turn, which is what matters. That's all you really need as Orcs. And I thought I'd try out the Death Dread again. It's one of my favourite sort of stupid-looking clanky Orc models. He's very derpy, and I love him. And he's genuinely dangerous. Like if you can get him into combat, which is no lean feat, then he's very good. So let's test them out and see how they do up against the Black Templars. So the Black Templars are returning to the channel. This is Righteous Crusaders, their sort of standard detachment. They did get a new Grotmus detachment, the Black Templars, but I mean, it's pretty bad, to be honest with you. It just doesn't have the oomph that this one does, and I think it's not very... Something about it is not very exciting. Something I've said is that I wish more detachments were like that one, because it's not so OP, and still kind of fun. But it's just like, compared to the other stuff, you just get very little mechanically out of the detachment, so it's a weird one. Anyway, so this is Righteous Crusaders. I think the vow that they picked this game was lethal hits, which is fantastic against Orcs, just because of the great lethal hits gets around their high toughness and the -1 to wound strats and abilities that they have. So that was really a great choice to be able to have as the Templars. They deployed a fair few things in reserve. You had the Chaplain and his Assault Intercessors with jump packs. They're in reserve with their Deep Strike rule. The Chaplain has Perdition's Edge, which is a really good enhancement. Gives him extra attacks and AP, and if he's in the Lethal Hits Doctrine, which is the favoured by the Black Templars here, I believe he gets an extra attack. So basically that Chaplain is +1 attack, +1 strength, and +1 AP, which with the ability to get +1 to wound that he has makes him very dangerous. So it's a great little unit. Those Assault Intercessors with jump packs, one of the stars of this army. They're then also, for being Black Templars, they've run an Emperor's Champion, and he's with 5 Assault Intercessors. He's seen the visions of the Orc war boss that he's wanting to slay, so he's on the field. Great unit. I really like the Emperor's Champion. He puts on a decent show this game for sure. Especially those Assault Intercessors. They're a great caddy for a character like him. 2 units of 3 Blade Guard. These guys recently came down in points, and now they're just kind of cool skirmishing units. And they were honestly taken as a bit of a flavour choice because they're very Black Templars with their shields. They just look great. So yeah, 2 units of 3 Blade Guard. Genuinely did very well. I think you might be seeing more of those in future battle reports. 5 Intercessors to kind of lay down some anti-chaff shooting and hold the backfield. You've got 5 Hellblasters and 3 Eradicators in reserve, just to give the army some kind of shooting threat and a bit of flexibility to respond to things. I think it's nice to have this balance of like the melee punch and the shooting. It's what Marines do best, and I think these 2 units in a lower points game, these guys are just kind of what you need in that regard. And then finally, a Redemptor Dreadnought. Now this is the big sort of beast of the army. It's like 1/5 of the army's total points, and just a real monster at this level, with that plasma cannon and all the little shots. Very, very dangerous, and very, very tough. So yeah, this is the Black Templars list that's been sort of, I've seen it get refined over the last year or so, and it's been a really good thing to see. So this was the Orc turn 1. The commandos moved up into the middle to extend battle lines and score area denial, so it was a big amount of secondary points turn 1. I knew I was sort of throwing away the commandos, but I also knew, because of the -1 to wound stratagem and the commandos 5-up invuln that they can get from their distraction grot, I just thought it was worth it, getting all these points out of it, plus forcing the Templars to commit something in response. And as a helpful bonus, they managed to get a bomb squig and a rocket firing off into that Redemptor, which I think was potentially the best Orc shooting phase I've ever had. The bomb squig did 2 mortal wounds, and the rocket did another 2 damage as it snuck a shot through the Redemptor's armour. So yeah, 4 damage to Redemptor. I think that's the most I've ever done in a single shooting phase with Orcs, so I was really happy with that. And scoring the points, which is good. On the bottom sort of left flank, the truck moved forward with its big 12-inch move and started terraforming. I thought that was really, really helpful on this mission, just being able to get that terraform going turn 1. So I was happy about that, and it kind of left the truck in a kind of a dangerous position to move forward next turn. Meanwhile, as you saw in the previous picture, lots of the other Orcs move forward into this building behind the centre just to kind of threaten the centre and any other objectives the Templars want to try and take. I got a bit excited, as an Orc player does, and didn't take any pictures of the deployment, but that was generally always the plan this game. So the Templars start up their turn, and they immediately go, they draw Bring It Down, which sort of they hopefully to kill those trucks, and secure No Man's Land, which means they need to get 2 objectives in the centre. They kind of take to this well. The Redemptor moves forward and fires everything he can into the truck. However, he rolls a low number of shots and doesn't get the wounds he wants, so the truck ends up surviving the macroplasma handily. I think it takes 3 damage from that. But then the Gatling cannon actually does 5 mortal wounds, which was pretty impressive. Reduces the truck down to 2 wounds, but then the rest of the shots kind of bounce. So the truck gets off lightly there, and Bring It Down isn't scored. But the intercessors, meanwhile, go into the commandos, reduce them pretty badly. I think some of the Redemptor's guns actually did go into the commandos, but thanks to the 5-up invuln and the stealth that they get, even with being the Oath of Moment target, they hold up well enough. I think a couple of them survive, which is always good to kind of have those assets running around. It was kind of my best case scenario, really, with putting them out like that. So yeah, it was not a great turn for the Templars, but not a terrible one so far. The Templars generally just kind of advanced up where they could. The Intercessors and the Redemptor made a normal move so they could have a good crack at dealing with the commandos. I think the grenade launcher really popped off and killed a few, which was quite good. And on the other flank, these Blade Guard moved up to kind of form a shield wall and protect the other unit from, the Emperor's Champions unit from a charge from the Orc Boyz. And also a really good heroic intervention set up here with that Emperor's Champion. So yeah, the Templars, while it wasn't the most explosive turn, it was a bit like the Orcs, a lot of setup and a lot of bracing themselves for the Orc charge. So Orcs turn 2. A draw on the cards wasn't great this turn, or it might not have been. Recover assets and marked for death, generally not things you want to see. Recover assets involves doing actions and then surviving, which isn't great. And marked for death is usually a tricky one. However, the Black Templars didn't actually have a lot of units on the board because they had 3 of their 8 units in reserve. So they ended up having to pick the Redemptor Dreadnought, the unit of Blade Guard that are on the back, and the Emperor's Champions unit, just because those were generally the safer units, which still left that Redemptor up for grabs as far as the Orcs were concerned, and they very much went for it. A mighty war was declared, and they sort of generally, the 2 units of Boyz threw themselves forward to attack these Black Templar lines, along with the Death Dread sort of clanking up alongside them. A veritable horde really goes forward there. The other Boyz a bit more cunning. The boss orders them to terraform that bottom objective, which was a really good move, I think. Not only are they going to sticky the objective and they're going to terraform it, and now's a good time because the Black Templars are sort of very distracted by all the Orc boys in the centre. So a bit of cunning tactics going on there. Stay tuned for more of those. I'm sure I've got some somewhere. The Orcs didn't have it all their own way, however. The Templars rapid ingressed the Chaplain and his unit right onto the back here. I had kind of made sure this unit of Orc boys here, I was trying to get them stuck in, but they rolled a 1 on their advance, and I didn't have any CP spare to re-roll it, so they more or less just stopped the rapid ingress from going off onto that objective, which, you know, it was what it was. It was just what I needed to do with the rolls I got. But meanwhile, the charges go well. An unit of Orc boys makes a normal move up here and throws a grenade into the Redemptor Dreadnought, whittling it down, which was quite nice. And charges off into these assault intercessors. And another unit of Orc boys charged the Blade Guard, but were countercharged by the Emperor's Champion, which was made for a pretty beautiful scrum here. I was feeling quite good about this, just because the Redemptor was already battered from the commandos, and then he took a grenade, so we'd taken, I think, 7 damage to Redemptor at this point, and the Death Dread went charging in with a mighty tank shock. So it was really with him being a marked for death target, I was really kind of all in on getting him at this point. So the end results, bit of a mixed bag for the Orcs, I'd say here. The Redemptor failed his battle shock from the Death Dread charging into him, which was very, very handy because it meant he couldn't AOC. And the tank shock did I think 3 wounds, so the Redemptor was down to 2. And thanks to him not being able to AOC, the Death Dread did a load of wounds, the Redemptor made his saves and just about did 2 wounds to him, which meant that he couldn't re-roll one of them to save himself. So the Redemptor went down. Great result to see for the Orcs. The Death Dread snip-snapped and got him good. However, the Orc boys, that was a bit of a less great story. They charged into those Marines, and somehow the Marine Sergeant survived. I believe they did an interrupt, killed about 4 Orc boys on the punchback just because of those lethal hits. So the impact was really, really low in the middle there, and this Templar survived. However, on the other flank, the Orc boys were crashing in. They hit the Blade Guard and the Emperor's Champion unit. I think they killed 1 Assault Intercessor and 1 Blade Guard. So I was very disappointed with that, with it being the War turn and everything. So, yeah, not great from the Orc boys there, but, you know, they all died, unfortunately, as well. I think I was close enough to getting 1 Orc boy surviving and tying up both these Templars units, which would have been great. But alas, it didn't happen. Just one of those things with Orcs where it can be a bit swingy at times. So Black Templars' turn rolls around and it's really all to play for here. They get engaged on all fronts and behind enemy lines, which is pretty good with the Chaplain's units already in position to do that. And engage. They have some stuff in reserves which can come in and kind of score that for them. So it was a good enough draw and didn't require them to do any actions, which is what you want in these pivotal kind of turns 2 and 3. So the Emperor's Champion leads the charge, the Blade Guard and the Assault Intercessors all go charging into the centre to fight the Death Dread, and they get supported by more Blade Guard coming in from the home base, which was really, really good. The Intercessor Sergeant, he actually, because of Stalwarts, he thought he'd just go for a cheeky Terraform, which I thought was a good move. I would have totally forgot that Stalwarts was a thing, which is good. And then the Chaplain's unit goes smashing into these Orc boys, and I think 6 Orcs died to just the impact hits. So yeah, this is a very killy squad, as you'll see. So on the Orc left flank, they're not having it all their own way here. We get some Hellblasters coming in. They kind of have a variety of targets. They manage to just sneak in here. They're not quite in my deployment zone, so that was a good turn 2 reserves for them. And the Eradicators come on eyeing up that truck. Probably could have kept the truck a bit safer, maybe just by being more aware of the flanks, but, you know, it is what it is. And it ends up not being too bad. The Eradicators fire and don't quite kill the truck, which was really good. I think they did about 3 wounds to it, but then I just happened to spike on the 5-up War in one there and make 2 of them, which means that they did about 6 damage to it, and then the Hellblasters had to finish the truck off in order just to stop it from being an asset. I think an Orc Knob died on the way out with the truck finally going down, which was a bit of a shame, but then the Hellblaster that overcharged and killed himself didn't shoot on death. So, you know, swings and roundabouts with that. I think I would have lost an Orc Nob either way. But yeah, I mean, good news for the Orcs here. That means the Terraform action is going to be completed by these Boyz. And the War Boss is kind of in a good position to counterpunch the centre. Which he's going to need to do as the combined sort of charge from everything here just wipes out all the Orcs in the centre. The Death Dread goes down, the Boyz go down. Rough stuff for the Orcs for sure. I think definitely my big mistake this turn was I rapid ingressed a unit of Storm Boyz back into the Templars backfield to kind of, you know, I wasn't sure exactly where they were going to go, but they're very fast. They always have advance and charge. And I wanted to kind of unsticky the Templars' home objective, force them to use an asset defending that if they needed to. And I could also then attack the centre with them or the flanks. So I would have liked to have saved CP for the fight on death, so that was probably a mistake by me for sure. So it's worth noting, I don't think I said it before, that the Assault Intercessors with jump packs and their Chaplain just completely wiped out the squad of Orc Boyz. That might have been another place where I could have fought on death, just to do a bit of damage to that squad. But regardless, the Orcs soldier on. Got behind enemy lines, which wasn't great right now. Secure no man's land though, just get on those centre objectives. That was already, I'd stickied one of them and I really wanted to take the other one back. So that was a great objective to have. So the Templars were low on CP, so there wasn't going to be an interrupt or anything like that. So this was a really good turn for the Orcs to go crashing in. The War Boss and his knobs, they just go pelting into the centre. There was actually a really funny thing where they really wanted to kill the sergeant that was terraforming, but I didn't really want to have to put any attacks into him because I knew I'd need them elsewhere. So they riddled it. I think they used their ammo grot and fired like all their guns. The truck fired its big shooter and everything all into that sergeant that was terraforming, and he made every single save. However, then they charged into combat. I did the crit 5 stratagem, which is really, really good. Just boosts up your damage like crazy. I didn't think it was that good at first, and then I started using it, and I was like, oh yeah, this is a great stratagem. And the squig ate the sergeant that was trying to terraform the centre there. I like to think he planted his banner there, and the squig just knocked him over and then bit the banner and ran off with it. So yeah, that was pretty good. However, I sort of piled into the centre here, like, right, they can't interrupt, they can only AOC one unit, let's get the Storm Boyz in to help, tie up the Blade Guard a bit as well. And between the Storm Boyz attacks, they killed a few Assault Intercessors, the Nob got them, and then the Crit 5s, Orc Nobs and War Boss went in. Now, they didn't have the extra attacks from War, but they tore up the Assault Intercessors very fast. However, the E-Champ, he has a 2-up save, and they used Armour of Contempt on him. And he just made like 11 3-up saves or something like that. It's pretty crazy. So unfortunately, the War Boss couldn't quite bag the Emperor's Champion's head there. Which is a bit of a shame, but the Emperor's Champion then very much fluffed all his attacks back. I guess he was too desperately parrying all those power claws to chop anyone down. So I didn't lose too many of my knobs on the counter-attack. And the Orcs were just kind of generally getting stuck in all over the place. My unit Storm Boyz went crashing into the Hellblasters, just hoping to take them out so they could go and assist with the rest of the battle. This might have ended up being a bit of a mistake, because they end up kind of tied up here for way longer than I thought they would, but sometimes that's just how it is with Orcs. The other unit, unfortunately, they went... I used the +2 charge stratagem on them. They went moving over towards the Chaplain's unit, hoping to just take a big chunk out of them. However, they rolled bad on the charge, and I CP re-rolled it, and ended up making the charge, but then it still was like a very poor charge, and ended up not being able to get the Nob into combat, because even with a pile-in. So yeah, that was pretty rough, and cost them quite dearly, as they were completely wiped out by the Assault Intercessors' counter-attack there. It's just a really, really good unit, especially with that Chaplain and the +1 to wound. So everything to play for in Templars turn 3. They get Assassinate and Storm Hostile Objective, which the Blade Guard and the Emperor's Champion are poised to do in the centre. So really, really good pull there. Now, one of the Blade Guard that was out of combat, he pulls back. He'd lost his friend, so there was just one of them left. And so he pulled back onto that objective to get some points in, as the Black Templars were lagging behind a bit here on the primary and the secondaries. The Eradicators moved to secure the home base objective, and the Hellblasters were stuck in combat with the Storm Boys. Now, the Chaplain, he talked about this as being a bit of a mistake after the game, but the Chaplain and his Assault Intercessors elected to stay on my home base just to score some primary and also to terraform it, because you can terraform not just no man's land, but basically just anything that's not in your deployment zone. So he thought this was a potential error, but I don't know, I thought it was a good way to just sort of keep those points. And the Emperor's Champion sort of went on to duel the War Boss in the centre, which was very, very cool. So this is it. As you can see from the dice, almost everyone's wounded. You've got the Storm Boys coming in from the flank, harassing the Blade Guard. The Knobs and them are clashing with each other. Everyone's wounded. The War Boss took some damage from the Emperor's Champion's like precision attacks. And everyone else is wounded from like bolt pistols and stuff like that. And they're hacking desperately at the Emperor's Champion, trying to bring him down. Just great to see this kind of like this cool narrative moment with them fighting in the centre here. And as expected, Orks can't be beat. The War Boss went in without being able to, even though he could blank a damage with his ability, the Emperor's Champion just couldn't quite hold up to the onslaught. And the War Boss skewered him with his claw, probably threw him in that vat over there to die dishonourably. The War Boss howled in triumph and everything, but it wasn't quite the turn the Black Templars wanted. They didn't get Storm or Assassinate as a result of the War Boss killing the E-Champ. And the Blade Guard, they failed to kill the Storm Boy or the Knobs. So yeah, it was a bit of a... Orks did well in the centre here, and they didn't quite crack under the pressure. So it was really hotting up in terms of damage here. The Orks wanted to get no prisoners and engage on all fronts. Engage wasn't really possible with the units I had left. They were kind of concentrated in this like left and centre of the board. But that was just going to be a command point, that's fine. I wanted to score some no prisoners. The truck went crashing into the Hellblasters here to help out. And even despite the truck going in and everything, they just couldn't kill these Hellblasters. I think out of 9 attacks that he made, the Storm Boy's Knob got 1 hit, which then failed to wound. So it really just made killing these Hellblasters an absolute chore. I was a little bit disappointed in them, to be honest, this game. Like, in their killiness, I mean. They were good utility units, but yeah, they really didn't get the stabbing done as they needed to. However, he is trapped in combat, so he's not going anywhere. And the Storm Boy in the centre has fallback, shoot and charge, so he passes. I auto-pass his battle shock. He goes to fall back, and the Black Templars use a stratagem, which basically means that either on a 4-up you can't fall back, and even if they fail the 4-up, you have to desperate escape. And unfortunately, despite a CP reroll on that desperate escape check, the Storm Boy dies, which means I lose out on that kind of momentum of him crashing back into the Blade Guard with his Power Claw, which is a real shame. However, the truck goes crashing in, like I said. Not much effect there, really. It did manage to kill one of them, so it kind of sped up the process a bit. I didn't score any points on secondaries this turn. I got a bit of primary, but I didn't discard. I discarded engage on all fronts. I didn't discard no prisoners because I knew this Hellblaster was trapped, which meant that he was going to hopefully die on the Black Templars on combat phase. So Black Templars turn 4. They still have Assassinate and Storm Hostile. They score a really good primary score thanks to the Eradicators and that lone Blade Guard. And the Chaplain comes ploughing in to avenge the Emperor's Champion. Thankfully, the Orc Warboss survives the impact hits. And when he gets to fight on death, he does quite well, kills 3 of the Intercessors as the Blade Guard kind of fall back from him. They also survived his attacks last turn. They killed the last Knob and left the Warboss alive. But the Warboss couldn't quite finish off the Blade Guard. They were really good with those invuns and the reroll ones. That was very, very good. They just survived a lot more than you'd think, as you can see there's sort of 2 one-man Blade Guard units running around here, which is great for your scoring, especially in sort of lower point games. Really, really great unit. So the Warboss is slain badly here, and unfortunately, even though he fights on death, he can't quite finish off that squad of Assault Intercessors, which means he doesn't bag no prisoners. However, on the other flank, I do manage to get that done. thanks to the Storm Boys finally finishing off the Hellblasters. So yeah, after the Storm Boys knob finally getting his act together, I think this time he killed like 3 Hellblasters, even when there was only 1 left. So that was great. I'm really glad he finally got his stick out there. But Orks get Sabotage and Overwhelming Force, and I'm sort of like, well, it's a tough one here, but I'm not out of it yet. The War Boss had cleared the way, and that now meant that the Chaplain was open. So I used the +2 advance and charge stratagem. These Storm Boys came rocketing across the field with an okay advance. And the idea is, well, if I charge in, I'll kill the Chaplain and the Assault Intercessor. That'll get me 4 points for Overwhelming Force, which will be really good. The truck starts to sabotage those ruins, and then I recapture the centre from the Blade Guard. It's just by auto-seeing him. Seemed like a fairly decent plan. However, it was for naught. They went crashing in, but just unfortunately, it just wasn't enough attacks. And even though they killed the Sergeant and scored some Overwhelming Force, they couldn't kill the Chaplain. He passed his invuns and brayed the unit to death with his enhancement. So it was really, really good for the Black Templars there. They secured the centre, got a big primary score. I think they scored 29 of their primary points over the last few turns, thanks to the terraforming and the various things like that, and holding the primary in the centre. The Orks get the Sabotage off, which is good from that truck. The surviving on 2 wounds at the start was a good thing for sure. And yeah, now that seals the game for the Black Templars. They've got all these kind of units hanging about, and the truck just kind of revs his engines and speeds away, having sabotaged that building. So yeah, fantastic game. We'll talk about the scores next. So yeah, despite taking a bit of a mullering in terms of like models that are remaining, I think the Orks put up a good fight here. Definitely, I could have dealt with that Chaplain's unit a bit better, maybe trying to save a fight on death. The rapid ingress is very, very good, and helped me on primary score, but maybe wasn't worth it in the grand scheme of things. It's really hard to say. This was a really good and really close game. So it was, there were so many points where you could have like a little bit of a different choice. Could have made a massive difference. As the Black Templars said, maybe committing that Chaplain earlier would have sealed the game far more in their favour. But we'll just have to see. Yeah, it was a really interesting game. As I said, came down to 6 points in the end, so, just a bit of an overwhelming force score for the Orks at the end there, killing that Chaplain. Maybe the Storm Boys could have pulled off a surprise victory. But regardless, it was hard fought. I do think with the Orks, I definitely messed up not using the fight on death as well as I could. Should have been trying to leverage it more while they were in the war. I think that would have been a good idea. I was a little disappointed in how the Ork boys performed. I just don't think they quite, I had 40 of them. They were a good chunk of my army. And they just didn't quite get the job done. They sort of bounced off a lot of their targets and died quite fast. But I guess that's just how it is. They're not expensive units, so you shouldn't be expecting too much out of them, even in the war. But yeah, I really like Warhorde still. I think it's a great way to play Orks, and it almost brought the Black Templars down. And Orks is never beaten. The War Boss bagged the Emperor's Champion, so I'm very happy with that. And the Squig got a kill. I always enjoy when the War Boss is a little Squig vehicle, war gear thing, where he has the attack Squig. It's a really, really rubbish little thing. You get it for free nowadays, but it's 2 strength 4 attacks that he makes that hit on 4s. But yeah, it's always really fun whenever that bags something. So yeah, great game. Really, really had fun playing this. It felt like a kind of a perfect game of 10th in a lot of ways. Really close. The scoring kind of mattered and made things thematic. Yeah, brilliant game. Like and subscribe, guys, and I'll see you next time.